If you ask me to give you a quick answer on the best protein for fat loss, I'm gonna build you an entire house, because I can't just tell you straight up, hey, this is the best protein for fat loss, because there's multiple categories. We have to talk about bioavailability. We have to talk about what suppresses hunger the most, which protein increases the thermic effect, your body heat, which protein literally actually helps you build more muscle, which helps you burn more fat, and which protein is also literally going to burn more fat oxidation. So it's a whole collective discussion we need to have. So let's first talk bioavailability. When we're looking at the best protein for burning fat, if you're not absorbing that protein, it's certainly not going to help you burn fat. There was a study that was published in Current Opinions in Clinical Nutrition and Metabolic Care, and it found straight up that animal protein is a bit more bioavailable than plant protein. Okay, with plant proteins being on average about 80% digestible or bioavailable, and animal proteins being about 92%. So quite a difference there. It's not to say that plant proteins are not good, but animal proteins are a bit more bioavailable, so more than likely you'll get a little bit more out of that. That being said, plant proteins were better off when they were processed. So plant proteins were pulverized into a powder per se, like maybe a protein powder. They had better overall absorbability and bioavailability. Whereas animal proteins, it didn't matter how they were processed. Like you could eat a steak or you could drink a protein shake, and there was a lot of similar bioavailability. Still differences, but overall negligible compared to the plant proteins. Now, to give you some numbers in humans, like whey protein and meat protein came in at about 92% bioavailability. Chickpea protein came in at about 74% bioavailability. Just to give you another piece of context, eggs came in at about 89% bioavailability. So meat and whey protein are more bioavailable than eggs, even though eggs might have a little bit more nutritional complexity to them than, say, a whey protein shake. Then they did more studies like with rats to see, not with rat protein, but they gave protein to rats to see how they would respond. And goat whey protein was 96%. So we've known goat protein's pretty good. So it looks like goat whey ain't too shabby. Rice protein was 85%, And then believe it or not, plant-based pea protein in a powder was at 94%. So if you're plant-based, as far as bioavailability is concerned, pea protein's great. If you're looking for whey protein that's very bioavailable, goat whey seems to be really, really good, but regular whey protein is going to be between 92 and 94% too. So it's really a negligible difference, especially when you factor in the cost of goat whey protein. Now that's just bioavailability. Let's dive into GLP-1. We're going to get you some answers here, but you're also going to get other answers along the way. It's pretty comprehensive for protein. GLP-1 is glucagon-like peptide 1. Okay, now you've heard of semaglutide before, or Ozempic, or Wegovy, all these things that are GLP-1 receptor agonists. Okay, so they do increase insulin, modulate blood sugar, and then allow you to be a little less hungry. Well, certain amino acids and proteins can do this too, and that factors hugely into fat loss. There's a study published in Metabolites that looked at specific aminos. It found that leucine, isoleucine, valine, methionine, and glutamine were some of the best when it came down to stimulating GLP-1. So when it came down to hunger suppression. But across multiple different studies, glutamine seemed to be the strongest, which is funny because I've literally done videos kind of crapping on glutamine before because it's kind of worthless and it's kind of not worth it for muscle building. But it seems like glutamine does stimulate GLP-1 the most. But that doesn't mean run out and grab a glutamine supplement. That means opt for proteins that have the most glutamine, which seems to be dairy-based proteins. Whey, casein, and regular milk protein, which actually has a nice absorbability score too. So when we're looking at these, we're like, okay, when we look at availability and we look at hunger suppression, it seems like whey and casein might be really, really good, particularly casein for appetite suppression. But there's more to it than this. Like we need to look at the thermic effect. What protein is going to get your body the hottest, right? So the thermic effect of protein ranges anywhere from 20 to 35% of the total calories, meaning if you ate 100 calories of protein, you could burn 20 calories all the way up to 35 calories of that total 100, just burning it into thin air because there's so much energy involved in the metabolism. And it's not just the digestion, it's the overall just assimilation and utilization of proteins. So there was a study published in Clinical Nutrition that looked at dietary induced thermogenesis of whey versus casein in this point. Just two proteins, but it's still interesting. The whey protein by far had the best thermic effect. But what was interesting is that the amount made a difference too. So having more increased the thermic effect, which is no real surprise, but it's cool to know. So basically, if you're like needing more protein and you're gonna have a 30-gram protein shake or a 50-gram protein shake, you might be better off getting the 50-gram protein shake because the rate of thermogenesis is actually much higher. It's a few percent higher. Not to mention you get more protein, which can contribute to a number of other things, including appetite suppression. So the calories that you get in from maybe a protein shake by having a few more, maybe a half a scoop extra, it may seem like, oh, I'm eating more calories. You might net out better at the end of the day, not to mention have more muscle building and more thermic effect. Now, I did put a link down below for my favorite whey protein. When it comes to flavor, I'm not kidding, like gospel truth, the best tasting protein powder I have ever had. It legitimately tastes like a Chick-fil-A milkshake, like their strawberry one. It's Bowmar Nutrition, and they have dozens of different flavors when it comes down to their whey proteins, their collagens, their protein coffees. And it's all sweetened with stevia or monk fruit. There's no sucralose. They're using good quality stuff. And that's because I talked to them about that, and they made sure they changed their ingredients to accommodate the kind of videos when I promote them. So I highly recommend them. They're a sponsor on this channel. Not only do they support this channel, but I legitimately, gospel, honest truth, they are the best tasting protein powder I have ever had. And that link down below is a special link and discount to try them out. So use that link down below underneath this video in the description. Okay, then we have to look at muscle gain, because if you're building muscle, you're burning fat. So we have to factor this whole piece in too. There's a study published in Nutrients that was a systematic review of 16 different papers. Once again, one of the first things they found is that animal protein and plant protein were not significantly different when it came down to lean body mass. However, when you dove deeper and you looked at as a percent lean body mass gained, then you start seeing like, okay, this is where animal protein is a little bit more statistically significant when it comes down to superiority. So you do want to kind of lean to the animal proteins if you can, but if you don't eat animal proteins, there's still options for you. It simply has to do with the essential amino acid content and the digestibility. So plant proteins aren't that digestible, and they do not contain as much of the essential amino acids that are essential from your diet. So when you get those in animal proteins, you're getting more of just the complexity or the completeness of the amino acids you need. So for example, like branched chain amino acids, these are great for stimulating mTOR and muscle growth and starting it, but essential amino acids are required to sort of potentiate that protein translation that's like required to get things going. So like, for example, if you were to take branched chain amino acids, it kind of starts the fire, but essential amino acids like start the fire with a blowtorch and with wind. So you actually really start a fire. So it's one thing to just flip the switch. It's another thing to flip the switch and have it all raging. So you want to go, in this particular case, once again, whey protein takes the cake, but then you start finding high amino acid concentration in things like white meat chicken. Yeah, good old chicken and turkey and even white fish are some of the best. Now, there's even some evidence that supports cod, white fish, being very, very good when it comes down to fat burning. That's why I think a lot of bodybuilders end up adding like white fish right before their contests. It's like gets that last little bit of fat off. So when it comes down to building muscle and burning fat, yeah, it seems like white meat and whey protein are really, really, really good. So how do you factor all of this in? We're looking at cottage cheese, we're looking at whey protein, and we're looking at lean chicken and lean fish. But if you want the literal best, it's between the whey protein and the casein protein. As always, keep it locked in here on my channel. I'll see you tomorrow.